We need to add item G,
Stinking road.
Which is what?
resignation of
They're
Sandy
15
Halsey
foot from the
from
bottom
Raymond
of
Community
the
Home Board of Directors. And she's not.
Well, I got a drone on all five. I knew you were gonna be there.
Huh?
I got a drone. I knew
You have
five.
one
I
for
knew you were
Jimbo,
gonna
that
be
needs to be made, or?
He was joking.
Oh, okay.
Under appropriations was 139,000, said you spelled the name wrong. You should have.
Oh, I got you. I was trying to get my ducks in a row.
No, he was.
It's too bad, because that'd be a nice one. Nice bi-weekly.
What are copper fit in shoes?
What are they?
Yeah.
Up on they're for primary, it's where the copper electric line will feed that pole.
Now I know. I'm like, what the heck are these? I cannot find it on here.
You don't wear it?
Mm-mm. Copper shoes? That might be a
That's a couple of
interesting shot.
Yeah.
Keep very electric. I forgot what has the hand sanitizer.
It has what?
It's a hand sanitizer.
One more bullet, share mine. Hand sanitizer.
Oh,
See how you are?
Say that.
Didn't want to use it, I just wanted to complain that I have one.
Yeah.
Now I'm gonna have some.
I think that's my face mask.
That's your what?
My face mask. That's my face mask. Not that one's a black one.
Oh, the black one? How'd you get over here?
No, you took it. It wouldn't-
Oh, hey, hey.
And you took my hand sanitizer.
I represent that. Whatever that word is.
You're making SUV. No, he's water. How do you know, Steve?
Good man, how you doing? Toys?
Nothing new.
I had a couple that I'm waiting on.
Yeah, I knew that.
It's just weird when stuff comes in, bringing out something new. Today being the manufacturer, and it doesn't show up for months. I mean, I'm sure
Shot
I
show or
mean,
whatever, yeah.
I know, I think it'd be cool.
Yeah, I'm good.
I'm not quite sure.
It's good to start producing fire after all that plan.
In the team.
I'll probably look about it now. I realize I didn't really.
It's some sort of deal.
I'm gonna buy their. Recreation brown.
Are you about that? I was thinking about that.
Let's see, it's, I want the, SAR. It's a recreation brown.
You're right, right. I read the article on it. Yeah, it looks like.
Call meeting to order. Karen, would you do a roll call, please?
Vanessa Martha Rosenfeld.
Present.
Lucas Stansford, Mary.
Here.
Ward 2. Bill Houston, Ward 3.
Here.
Jeff Leslie, Ward 4.
Here.
We have a quorum, Mr. Taylor.
Bill, would you do the invocation, please? Sure. Heavenly Father, as we come to you, we come thank you for this day. Father, thank you for your blessings in life. Pray that you'd watch over this council, you'd watch over this city. Father, that you bless its residents. We also want to remember the situation in Ukraine, Father, that you might bless that situation, that it might come to an end before we have much more impossible life. Father, we ask these things in Jesus' name. Amen. I pledge
allegiance
to the flag
of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Do I have a motion for acceptance of the agenda?
Mr. Mayor, Jeff Leslie, Fourth Ward, I move we amend tonight's agenda, the printed edition, to include item G, acceptance of resignation of Sandy Halsey from Raymond Community Home Board of Directors.
Second. All those in favor say aye.
All right.
Opposed, same sign.
Mr. Mayor, Jeff Leslie, Fourth Ward, I move we accept tonight's amended agenda.
Second it.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Mr. Mayor, Jeff Wesley, Fourth Ward, I move we accept tonight's consent agenda, items A through C.
I'll second that.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next we come to public forum. Nobody at the public forum, so we'll move on to regular business. At this time, what we'll have, we have item A is a public meeting for a budget amendment. We have nobody speaking in reference to the public meeting for a budget amendment. We'll move on to item B.
We need to approve.
You do.
I think first we need to motion to approve the budget amendment.
Mr. Mayor, Jeff Wesley, Fourth Ward, I move we approve the amendment to the 2022 city budget as presented, and which drew no public comment.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay, moving on to item B. Ryan insurance proposal.
Good evening, I'm Wally Wilson. I'm the managing partner at Ryan Insurance, and got the renewal proposal from EMC for the city of Girard's property and casualty insurance. We've already discovered that we've got some questions on the property coverage, some locations. We've received from the office today a listing of addresses and locations. We will get, within the next 2 weeks, we'll be over here and survey every single building and take pictures and figure out what we have, or if we've got different addresses or whatever, to get this straightened out. And I apologize for that. The main issue seems to be the 309 Antelope locations 1 and 2. They've been on there, as I was talking to the mayor prior to the meeting. I've gone back 9 years, and they've been on there for that long. They're not the ones that we sold, that you all sold to Thomas Manufacturing. So we'll figure out what those are and take the proper action on that. The rest of them, we believe are correct, and I've tried to compare that list as best I could quickly today, and I think we've got every building on there specifically listed. The power plant has some buildings there that are insured under a different package, so we don't have specific addresses for them. We'll get back to them on about page 4 or 5, on about page 5. But these are all on a blanket basis, meaning if you go back to page 4, you'll see at the bottom of the page, statement of values, $14,884,561. That is the amount of insurance you have for any one location and any one loss. Your deductibles are $1,000 on all but wind and hail, and they are $5,000 on wind and hail. And again, that's per occurrence, not a per location. I cannot recall in the last 3 years that I've seen a $5,000 wind and hail deductible on property in the state of Kansas. But you all have it. We've been very quiet about it. We're not going to point that out to EMC, but that's an exceptional thing to have in Kansas, especially on an occurrence basis with this many buildings. That does include equipment breakdown, which used to be called boiler and machinery. main thing you pick up there is this power surge or an electrical arcing situation. That's the main, there's other things. Explosion of a steam fired or pressure fired vessel, but that's the main thing you're really picking up there. You do not have that coverage, the equipment breakdown coverage on the power plant equipment. We have that under a separate package because EMC would not do that. Now you get to page 5 and we get to the commercial output policy. That covers all the equipment, all the buildings, et cetera, at the power plant. It does not include equipment breakdown. We've got stated value, meaning you have told us what the values are, and we were over here, I think last year, maybe just right before that, with people and have gone through that thing pretty closely, I believe. We've got 25,362,427 as stated value. That was arrived at in consultation with the city when that survey was done. And that is not replacement cost. It's not actual cash value. It's an agreed value that is scheduled on your policy. You have contents, desk, chairs, etc., 51,500, and that's at replacement cost. And you have fuel, 71,070 at replacement cost. Boy, fuel's going, maybe we ought to look at that. And probably seriously, we probably should look at bumping that up, at least for the short term. What, predicting $200 a barrel in May. So. Then you go to page 6 and we pick up the equipment breakdown on the power plant, but we're not picking up buildings, et cetera. We're picking up the machinery and equipment, which is 8.5 million. It's cut up this way because EMC will not write equipment breakdown on a power plant. So we had to bring Cincinnati in to write the equipment breakdown on the power plant. So we've got 3 policies where, unfortunately, if EMC had done it all, we'd just have the one. But that's the best way we could get it done. I think, very honestly, I think that's the way Ryan Insurance got the account some years ago, was because the power plant wasn't properly covered in some fashion. But that's getting back into old lore, but I believe that's the truth. Page 7 is general liability. Pretty straightforward, with the exception of you get into the middle of the page, and there's 4 things listed there. I don't ever put those things on my proposal, and it got copied down and it's on there. Employment practices liability, I think you all know what that is: wrongful discharge, discrimination, et cetera. That's covered under your line deck. Shouldn't be under the general liability. Town liability and public entity coverage, that's the form that EMC writes for towns, cities, and public entities. So why that's listed down there separately, I don't know. I saw it was too late, but it's just in the form. Vacant land, obviously, you've got some vacant land, and we do cover that. The additional insureds are all as they have always been. It's page 8, the inland marine, and I know Karen spent a lot of time going over this list, and I can't think, was it Steve, Karen, that came in when we were over here last week and changed some values, and we went over some things with him.
Yeah.
So I believe that list should be correct. I think it's been reviewed, and thanks to Karen and everyone for getting that done for us. That is the biggest area that we have problems with all our municipalities and Crawford County itself, is getting a proper list of equipment. If we don't know it's on there, If you don't tell us it's on there, we don't insure it. If you don't tell us it's off of there, we don't take it off. So it's just silly to pay much money for something that you don't have, and it's silly not to let us know that you do have, because EMC will cover it. We've got enough pull with them to make sure it's covered, but to avoid any problems, we should have it on there. Rented or borrowed equipment, bottom on page 10. Anything you all rent, borrow, et cetera, 10,000 any one item, 59.5 for any one claim. Greens coverage, 20,000 for green. Driving range property and golf course property. It's the fairways, the sand traps, et cetera. We get back page 11 to business auto. And you'll notice in the comp and collision side on the right, if there's no X, there's no coverage. You've got a $1,000 deductible on comprehensive and a $1,000 deductible on collision. Then you get back to page 12. When we have equipment or autos that are worth 100,000 or more, there is a $3,000 deductible. And you had 3 of those on that show on page 12 in red. Government crime blanket employee theft, 190,000 with a $4,000 deductible. Law enforcement, just exactly what it sounds like. In some cities that have had a lot of problems with that, and that's one of the areas that EMC has increased their premiums greatly. You guys have not experienced that, so your premiums in accordance have not gone up too terribly on that. Linebacker is the professional liability. It covers you all and decisions the city makes. That's $1 million with a $2 million policy year aggregate with a $2,000 deductible. Fire pack, that's your fire department. We have broken it out separate in a separate policy. It's got a little bit broader coverage than EMC will offer. Your equipment is covered for exactly the value you tell us for, up replacement cost up to the value that you've got scheduled. That's one of the reasons we like the fire pack. It does provide replacement costs up to the value that you've given us. But make sure you look at those, and the fire department look at those closely. They did last year, I know, but worries me every year because a new pump was $600,000. And that's a pretty big expense if you've only got one insured for $400,000. And we get back to the bad news. Premiums have gone up primarily on property. They increased all the values by 7% arbitrarily, would not back away from that. So that accounts for some of it. They also took a rate increase. The rate increase accounts for $7,100 of that increase, and the value increase accounts for about $3,000 of that increase. And again, we fought them, but I didn't want to push too hard because I didn't want to jeopardize those deductibles. You all are the only ones we have with a $5,000 deductible left from all the 13 cities we insure. And everybody else is 10,000 and 25,000 on wind and hail. And so I took it on myself and made the decision myself not to fight them too much on the increase, because if you have a hailstorm, that's a big difference. So. But that's where your increase is you've got $10,000 of your $13,000 increase in the property, and then another $2,000 in the commercial output. So there's 12,000 of your increase, which is all property. We did go to others. Platteville, they're writing cities at this time, but their deductibles are over $100,000. Travelers refused to quote only because we've asked them to quote every year and they never are competitive. So this year they said, we see no reason to quote unless ENC is not going to offer. So they didn't quote. Berkshire Hathaway has withdrawn from cities in the state of Kansas completely. There used to be a captive and a pool for cities. They've withdrawn. They're no longer here. And it's the property that gets them. We've been very fortunate in this part of the world on property losses, but in this part of Kansas, although you all did have a $56,000 claim last year, which again, it had a slight impact on the rate, but overall, we have about a $13,000 increase, which is more than we'd like, but that's where we are. And we do shop it every year with everybody that's there, and we try and argue as firmly as we can to get rates down. But again, with the deductibles, if they push deductibles up, we'll push back really, really hard on the rate. But I just don't want to mess that up. So that's what we have, and I do apologize again for apparently having the property in some sort of disarray, but we will get that resolved very, very quickly. And again, I don't know what happened or how it happened or whatever, but it's been that way for so many years that I think Carrie and us, everybody has just kind of done, oh, that's the way it was last year. So, no, it hadn't really been questioned too much. So.
Mr. Wilson,
But
correct?
we will.
Mr. Wilson? Yeah, I appreciate your coming and explaining all this instead of just sending it and by email and mail, electronically. I think that's a huge benefit to me, and I assume the fellow board members, council members. I also know that, public entity insurance is difficult to come by. Those rates increased are somewhat surprising based upon the inflation and values of property, that they're not worse. In my opinion, would you?
7% is pretty mild.
Compared to what it could have been. So I appreciate that. Also appreciate your attention to detail and kind of verifying the property list. I think that's important. Which then begs the question, our new construction of a new home for the city electric department, has that been broached, or when that building is completed, will you need to inspect it and bring coverages online for it? And is that part?
We'll run over and take a picture of it because we do want to get that booked to you.
Pam's already aware of that.
Okay.
She said to let her know when you start building.
All right.
So Cliff was supposed to let me know when you guys.
Okay, and if you need a builder's risk on that, that's fine. If your contractor's gonna do it, that's fine as well. I will say that usually, not always, usually a contractor, if he buys a board at the lumber yard, adds his 10% to it. When he buys your builder's risk, he adds the same 10% to it. So just bear that in mind.
Increase in fuel, was there a recommendation, like how many gallons do we have on hand, or what bulk amount? Is that something that, if it goes absolutely crazy, that could turn into tens and tens of thousands of
If
dollars.
you have lots, it could, yeah.
Yeah, but I think the projections over the summer is that it's going to get crazy. And sometimes those projections come to fruition, sometimes they're not.
Sometimes they don't. But, we can, but my suggestion would be that they're up about 70% from this time last year, I believe, is about the right number. But my suggestion would be that we take it from the 70 up to 100 and kind of give it a wait and see, and that probably won't hit it all if it was full when we had the loss, but might mitigate some of it. It's not terribly expensive.
It wouldn't be too bad. I appreciate your advice also on, I guess, maybe managing the situation as far as the arguing rates and drawing too much attention. I really appreciate your experience and expertise in that, because that could reopen that, and $7,000 increase if we have to go to all $5,000 deductibles or $10,000 deductibles. That seems like a bargain to remain at those deductibles.
As long as we can keep the deductibles low, I hate to give them up.
Thank you.
Wally, do we have a cybersecurity policy?
You do not, and that's the last thing I wanted to say. We have talked about it in the past,
We need one.
and you are the only city,
What's that?
you're the only city we have that we do not have it on. Cyber coverage is, well, when the city of Pittsburgh, when we did our annual review with them, they asked what the problems were we envisioned for the coming year. And my response to almost anybody is cyber. Coverage has, capacity is diminished tremendously. Half the reinsurers have pulled out of the business. Half the carriers from last year are no longer offering it. Losses have been horrendous. Nobody knew what to expect. They still don't know what to expect. With Russia and the Ukraine situation, rates have gone up 35% in the last 3 weeks. City your size is probably going to be in the 6,000 to 9,000 range, somewhere 5 to 10, 6 to 9, somewhere in there for $1 million of coverage.
If we got hacked, it can be disastrous for the city. It would be-
And we will ask you all to implement, call it MFA, but it's multi-factor authentication. But when you log in, you get a text on your phone that sends you another code that you got to put in. It's a pain,
We have that.
but if you have it, then you're better off. But we should definitely relook that this year, because
Agreed, 100%.
it is the exposure of today, and it'll cripple you.
Yeah, we need-
The costs are, if you get hacked and your records are breached, the cost has come down tremendously, but you're required by Kansas statute to pick up anybody who's in your system or did a transaction with you over the last 5 years. You have to notify them of the breach. You have to offer, you don't have to offer, you have to give them credit monitoring for 1 year. That's running about $50 a record now. Then you have to find out how your system was breached so that you don't do something and restart it, and boom, here you are again. Those run $250 to $300 an hour, those people. Then you got to rebuild your system. It's a cyber breach. You could lose your library for almost less money than the cyber breach could cost you. It's phenomenally expensive. The other thing is, if you send me an email or somebody hacks your email in some fashion and it infects my system, my carrier is going to do an investigation into my system, and they're going to come back and say, hey, this came from you. Well, they're going to ask you to pay it back. It's an awful situation. But you need to have at least $1 million, and if your budget will allow you, the more your budget will allow, the better off you are.
So then would the recommendation be to approve this as presented, ask for the inclusion of cyber coverage for $1 million for a not to exceed fee? Should we do a motion to that, or?
Yeah, do we have to, Wally, when you get the property survey in the next couple of weeks, will these numbers adjust, or?
They could.
Do we need to?
They could. I mean, if the
So would we need
if
to
the
adopt-
309
would we need to adopt
antelope aren't on there, we'll take them off.
Will we need to adopt a different policy at that time?
No. No, we will provide endorsements
We'll
with it.
adjust one way or the other.
We'll adjust this premium at renewal down, and if we can, and we'll try and get you an endorsement back for the past year.
Are we gonna wanna bid out the
If we can.
cyber portion?
Well, I think the broker would probably, I mean,
We will,
We
I'll
trust
get
our
with,
broker.
I'll get with Karen,
I know we don't use the local.
first part of next week, we'll get I'll get an app over to you tomorrow,
Okay.
so you can start filling it out, and we'll.
For cyber? Yeah. I recommend we do it, so it's a big deal.
But it's, if, I won't tell you the names of the cities that I'm thinking off the top of my head. It's gonna be, if we move quick, we can maybe get it in at 6 or 7. So, but it's not going down, you know.
So approve this with the property adjustments and then approve that when we get,
Well,
monies on it.
It'll take me 2 weeks.
We can
It'll
approve
take me
the
about 2
package
weeks
now
to
with
get
the
it
not to
booked back.
exceed. I'd suggest we approve the package with the not to exceed for add-on cyber protection, and then they can go ahead and transact the business. And if it was something else, we could have,
Yeah, or
does that make sense?
we can do this. We can renew the EMC, and when I bring you the cyber, you can look at that too, because I'm afraid to say add on 9,000, and, you know, I'm gonna have to come back to you anyway to go over it, or I'd like to.
That's fine.
I think it'd be good if you all really understood what it's gonna cover.
Sounds good.
So just approve it now, and then when they have the cyber package, you'll just come back.
Right.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, Jeff West, Fourth Ward, I move we approve the insurance proposal as presented by Mr. Wally Wilson from Ryan Insurance LLC. Also, requesting a proposal, not related to this proposal, for cyber security protection in the range of $1 million to $1.5 million, whatever the best value.
I'll give you some options on it.
Mr. Mayor?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Is that you that seconded? Sometimes I can't hear where it comes from.
Thanks, Ian.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Mr. Wilson.
Moving on to item C, executive session for contractual to discuss Slow Creek contract and booster station bid.
Mr. Mayor, I move to go into executive session for contractual to discuss Bone Creek contract and booster station bid. Appointment discussion to include the mayor, council, city administrator, city attorney, and the public works director.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
And make it right. You got it. You'll make it right. I'll grab it.
First thing, I think that's the third glass of water you got. I'm not gonna- Okay. So they charge my charge card 3 times. They charge and credit, charge and credit, charge and credit, 3 separate times. Finally, I called to find out what the heck was going on. To the company I got it from, because I didn't go and buy one, because they didn't have them available. We had to order.
Yeah.
And never talked to a person, never told them my name, and yet they told me that the delivery was gonna be on March 17th. I never even talked to anyone, it was all automated. I never told them my name. I don't think I told them my address.
They probably looked at.
They got it from my phone.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Get to 2 weeks.
I'd be afraid to, yes, so one, and phone, and like,
Well, I haven't done it when I'm not home, but like if I'm just on the couch and I'm like, I need to start the oven.
So you don't do it from town?
I haven't. I think I did it one time when my husband was home, and I was like, hey, I'm gonna do it and see if it works, and it did.
I'd be kind of nerve wracking,
Yeah, I don't think I
having
would.
a fire going and no one home.
Yeah, I don't think I would do it. Not, it's not that serious. I can wait 20 minutes.
Yeah.
But it does work, and you can shut it off, and you can set a timer.
To keep it warm and stuff.
Yeah.
I can see that with electric, I just never dreamed of it with gas.
Yep.
Gas. That's weird.
Mhm.
Call meeting back to work. Moving on to item D. Approve USDA document signatures.
There's just a few documents on there that is the next step in applying for the USDA loan / grant for the water structures. They're pretty basic.
Yeah, I think one of them shows the current council people that are on there, and then the other one is a resolution that they require that you agree to
Maintaining.
certain rules and regulations when you're bidding.
We just need a motion for mayor signature on that.
Karen, do you think they need 2 motions, one for the document and a separate one for the resolution?
Yeah, probably so.
Or
The
that was,
resolution will have to be a motion on its own.
what resolution? 2022
Is that the one that I already numbered?
Yeah, it's already numbered 2022.
But a motion to accept the mayoral signature and then a motion to accept the resolution.
Mr. Mayor, Jeff Wesley, fourth ward, I move we adopt resolution 2022-04.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Mr. Mayor, I move we approve a mayoral signature on USDA grant documents, approved for mayoral signature.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay, moving on to item E. Discuss CDL training center program.
Steve was working on this and we finished the job description this morning. To go forward for the next step, what we decided today, and I think I uploaded a document for the motions that we would need. We need a motion for the job description and the pay structure, and I forgot to tell you, no, did I send you that for the pay structure? I did. With the way we did the motion, right? So the pay structure in there, the job description, and to promote Michael Clark, who's a part-time firefighter, to our CEO training instructor. And he's a current employee and he comes highly recommended for this purpose from Steve, police chief, and the fire chief, because they've all worked with him. He's actually already certified to teach these courses and to provide this training, and he worked at Johnson County Community College. You know that, right? So this is moving along. Steve's already had several different cities and a business, right? Somebody have called asking if we would provide training also to their employees. We kind of have some ideas on what we would want to do for tuition. One of the things that's still a little bit up in the air is how we would run that through the budget, whether it be an enterprise fund or through the public works department. I have contacted the state municipal administration, and they usually get back with me really, really quick, but they didn't this time, and I'm guessing they aren't sure either. This is a brand new law, and so probably cities are wondering how to run that through their budget. But I'm confident, I think Steve's also very confident and excited about this, and we can keep giving you guys updates. But I think the next steps would be job description, promoting Michael Clark. He would have to give his 2 weeks notice, so it would still be 2 weeks. We did put in the job description that he would help design curriculum, do some of the recruiting events and some of those things. So I think if we could get him on in 2 weeks, we can definitely put him to work. But we're hoping for first class to be soon, maybe summertime.
And we assume that's why it could be a money maker or something like that.
Yeah, we think so. We're surprised at the interest. All we've done so far is register
Right.
on the state website, and how many calls have you got?
Been accepted on the state's website, and so far I've received 3 cities that have reached out to me that didn't do this, and they want to use this, and I have 7 other students, single students, that have reached out. So right now I have 10 phone contacts that are sitting on my desk that I've reached back out to. And the biggest issue too, and I don't know if we need to have discussion tonight over that, but it's the cost of tuition.
Yeah, what are we gonna charge?
We thought 2,500,
So
and
that's,
that's actually a little bit lower than, I think the average is about 3.
it's been as high as 5,700, but that's being through a junior college that's doing it like a semester type course, 160 hours. And what we're looking at doing is a 1 to 2 week course.
Mm.
And from what we've seen, the lowest I've seen besides the 25 was 31. And we wanted to be reasonable enough to attract it, but we don't want to be so reasonable that we get overwhelmed. But we have control over that by controlling class size.
I mean, I understand that we have costs and we can't really afford to take on a budget loser, but I mean, other cities have to be in the same circumstance that we are, and any opportunity to cooperate with our county, who, as we all know, has been very good with us, although I think they're doing their own training program. You know, I don't think we, take one for the team, so to speak, but any way we can cooperate. I'm glad actually that you're setting the rate very reasonable in comparison, although it still sounds like a lot of money for a new daggum requirement.
I had a guy
Especially
call
one
me.
that I kind of felt bad for, like the people, like the kids getting out of high
Yeah.
school wanting to do that, and
Exactly.
sometimes they're always taught. But we did talk about doing some kind of discounts maybe for cities that are using us exclusively, and we'll be sending this people off.
I had a student
So
call me from
that's part that
Chelsea.
we still need to work on, so that's.
A rate
still there.
structure,
Yeah,
kind
and
of
we could bring you guys a couple proposals, or like 2 or 3 proposals on how we would like to see that. And then it'll probably be kind of like a golf course last year, whenever we lowered rates and we actually brought in more revenue after we lowered the rates. I mean, it could be that situation too, but we could come with like an option A, B, and C, and then we could move from there, and that might be by next meeting. you think?
I'll have a-
You have to be 21 years of age to get one, right? To get a CDL, is it 21? 18. Well, so that kind of brings up subject. In your rate, would you guys consider And then, maybe no one else would agree with it. Any kind of discount we could provide to citizens of the town,
Yeah.
graduates of the high school,
No, I think that's a great.
something like that
That's a
to
great idea.
just,
The high school doing their own.
they are for their own transportation entity, but I don't know of anything curriculum wise. for students. Yeah, just kind of what, I just bring it up and
Within the last 2 years, you're eligible for some kind of discount.
I trust you guys to figure it out. Just wanted to bring up the idea.
We have one other thing that we have, and I won't put a name out yet because they haven't really confirmed it, and I don't want to throw them under the bus. But we have also a possible, we've had conversation with a possible partnership with a junior college. And if that, it looks lucrative.
Mhm.
So, that's something else that we're playing with. As far as the rates go, I
Just don't let them tell you what you can charge Girard.
no, I've already told them where we were at with it, and they actually were planning on being just a little higher than us. And, but in terms of the rates, one of the comments you made a while ago, I had a student from Shell City that called me and asked me, and I said, well, I can't really tell you rate yet because I've got to run through council and we'll have to set that, but I can tell you where I'm thinking. And when I told him, he said, I have cash, I'll be there tomorrow. So the price that these other facilities are charging for this, at 2,500, I think that we'll have more than enough people knocking on the door that will probably actually have a list. And right now, there's already, like, there's a lady in Joplin that's doing it. You can't get into hers until September. She's already that booked.
Well, I didn't mean to micromanage. I just have some sympathy for folks, a brand new requirement that I personally, maybe I'm just really ignorant of stuff. I didn't know anything about this till 6 or 7 months ago. But this was even
It's
coming.
actually been going on for a few years.
I know, but Kansas legislature had refused to, and they didn't. I didn't know they were anticipating this passing until the last session, and so it just seems like another slap in the face to, especially young people trying to get a job and get to work.
Joanna,
Thank you.
will we have a need for increased coverage for our students who are
That's
driving?
what he was talking about, the speed limit and talking
Okay.
about. And we're
So we just need to address that, make sure we're going to start this with that coverage.
He said we would be the only company.
And Steve, the questions I had, I looked over, is it specific to CDL training? Like this gentleman, is he a teacher
Yes,
accredited?
yes.
Or
He is certified. He has been certified to teach CDL training. The only thing that he can't do yet, and depending on the merger that we may make, if you guys so decide, want to know a little more, he could, if we didn't do that, he could actually go get certified to do the testing on site, so that it's completely done right here and they walk away. The other place we're talking about doing is through the junior college.
Yeah.
They actually can do that, and so what I'm thinking is the extra that they want to make to get where they want to be at would be the test cost. And so when we finish our students here, they would go up there, take their test, and they're done. So, but yes, to answer your question, he's certified, and the only other thing he would need to do if we decided we wanted to test here on site, he would have to do that.
Wasn't that one of the political trade-offs they made? If you already have a driver, they made it to where you could get your own certified instructor fairly easily, at least in this initial wave of this deal,
Yeah, so
to get it past the legislature.
you have to, in order for us to qualify register, the only reason I was able to register us and qualify us was because I had him lined up to instruct. You have to have one certified instructor, and then you can bring another person in that has 2 years of driving with that classification on their CDL, and they can instruct under him, and then they can work on their certs. And that's something I'm looking at for development of the department once we get up and going.
So it has to be this specific as CDL instructor, and just need to be instructor?
No. They have to be a CDL licensed driver, and they have to be certified in CDL training
In order to perform,
in order to teach it.
to do what we need for them to do. Because my concern is that, like Jeff was saying, if the state decides to do a 180 and then they drop this requirement, then we have a gentleman that's on Girard's staff, would that be a concern for you going forward? I guess they turn to a public works employee at that time, or they still be a CDL instructor with no CDL requirement anymore?
For one, I can't see the future, but I don't think that it's going to go away from everything that I've been seeing. The big problem that they're having right now is they're getting a lot of guys out on the road that don't have any business being behind the wheel of a semi. And so this is the federal government's way of saying, we're going to put an end to this. You're going to learn how to drive.
I understand that.
And, I don't think it's going anywhere. I really don't.
And that being said, with our location and even with the co-ops around and the grain trucks, and I would like to see a little bit more, I guess, investment into it. If we are serious enough, so we can even have a training facility or have that guy go ahead and do it, we can do it on site if needed. But I think mid-season, like that, the job description, rather than just being an instructor or a CEO, not so much for, it's more of his, like he could take his skill set and go anywhere with this program, right?
Sure.
That's my concern. Is that we started out and then this person would leave to a different
We have
location.
So-
plans to get other employees who are certified.
I'm already working right now, I'm talking with one individual that I could easily transition into that, working underneath with Michael and start him in the certification process. And it's doable, there's a 4-year course. I talked with Joanne about that today, about possibly doing like they do with the line department with the merchant course, where they have to proceed through that, and every time they proceed through that, they get a bump till they get to the top and they're certified complete and whole. But once you get the first step, that's your basic certification, that's a huge step above where that individual would be. To answer that question, there's that possibility, yes. If that happened and we don't have that other person in there ready to go, the only other thing you do then is put out for a certified instructor, and there's job descriptions out for that all over the place, hiring for that job.
Yeah.
And it's one of the concerns that I have about where we start this particular individual at, because this is a skilled trade. And it's a desired skilled trade right now. So I think whenever we actually get to the point of talking money, Joanna and I talked about bringing it in at what we have our entry level scale and doing a 90-day probationary to see how it all goes, because we have probationaries with everything that we do.
And then maybe offering a larger than a 50-cent
Correct.
increase. And then we reduce the probationary period time because he is already certified and already works here.
The caveat to this for us is the same thing we talked about from the very beginning. I can run any of our people through it, and it doesn't cost the city.
Well, yeah,
And actually, we'll use I have 2 right now that have their CLPs that are ready to go get the full CDL, and I want to run them through.
well, that's what we talked before. It's nice to have some sort of a good incentive, not really incentives too for employees that want to work at the city that will hopefully keep them here and keep them local. Yeah. And when I look at instructors, Jeff would know more about this than I would, but usually they're looking for the next, not really certificate, but just ways to continue education and.
And that could be something like we post internally and see which employees are interested in pursuing that.
Or facilities. Don't we have the fire department, does that have a training room?
Yes.
Which is what we have registered as our training facility, is the training room in the fire department. I've already spoken with the fire chief about that. We're also, I've had a conversation with him about possibly utilizing the bunkhouse over there for students, because I have one town that's called that it's going to be a long drive for them to get here. And because the federal, there's no boundaries across the state line, so I have people from Missouri that are calling me. And what's going to end up happening is just what's happening right now. Actually, the college that is looking to possibly, that we've had some discussion about partnering with, they're sending people to me by phone because they're not ready yet. And my phone's been, the last 2 days in particular, my phone has done nothing but ring. And we've had to turn some down because of hazmat, because Michael does not have his hazmat. That's something we would want to look at for advancing him. It's picking up some of the extra endorsements. So what we've registered as is a Class B to A and a Class A CDL training facility, because that's what we have the capabilities of doing. So that would be the advantage of partnering with this community college, because they have the other stuff.
Yeah.
So,
Well, if we have a facility and that can work out, that'd be beneficial.
How many classes a year do you think we're going to be able to handle?
So the student to teacher ratio is going to depend on several things. It depends on the size of the course, whether it's a 2-week course, 4-week course, or 16-week course. When I spoke to Michael about it, he had indicated to me as far as classroom size, he can handle a full classroom. But when it gets to the behind the wheel training, that's not going to happen, because you're going to have, I think the model for me is 2 per instructor. That's why I think we start with him. We ease our way into this to get a feel for how this looks. And then I want to try to get either this other individual that I'm talking to, if he's not interested, then bring somebody else in. And then you have 2 instructors, you bring 4 in, and realistically, if that's the case, if it's a 2-week class, you're looking at 26 classes.
26 classes of 2.
Well, depends on whether I get the second instructor, yeah. So 26 of 2 or 26 of 4, but you know, like right now, I got excited about it. I got excited when the phone was ringing off the hook. It was driving me crazy, but it was fun to see that these people are calling. It's $2,500 pop. I mean, it's $25,000 sitting on my desk right now. It's waiting to be ran through this system. So,
I'm just,
Question is, how long will they wait?
well, the ones that I'm talking to are, you know,
Bigger than 2.
they're actually reaching out because they know that the classes are going to fill. The advantage they have with us right now is that they're on limbo waiting on you. And your municipalities that have called me know, because that's the first thing I started the conversation with. Your municipality, you know how this process works. We're doing this, we're registered, but I have to get all the final details tweaked through and sent to the council.
Well, you may have some entity that wants to reserve because they know they're going to have turnover. If you have a relationship with them, they may want to reserve a slot per quarter.
My end goal, if you want to know the truth of the matter, my end goal is I'd love to be able to contract with an entity for a year that we are their dedicated source. I don't know how that looks, but it's something I consider.
so $2,500, so $5,000 for a 2-week course is what we're initially looking at, is what he's wanting right
We're
now.
gonna ask him if we want to do it.
He thinks he can handle more than 2. I'm working off a model that I saw from another junior college that was doing this, and they were doing 2.
The vehicles that you would use in instruction, what would they come from? Is that for the driving?
But right now, the GMC's got a couple of issues. In order for it to be able to pass the driving, it has to pass the federal standards.
Sure.
And we've got an issue with the wiring on the GMC where it hooks to the brakes on the trailer that we've got to investigate. Clifford has a truck that he's offered us. We use it for the driving course, so he's offered to do it as long as we put it up every day when we're done with it.
So you own an insured vehicle?
Yes, we do.
That's all.
We have literally we have what we need to get started.
I trust judges with Chris.
We'll probably be bringing this to you every meeting for a while. So it's up and running.
Well, I mean, I think it's exciting that it's a potential moneymaker, but it's also exciting for public service.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
I think partnering with the high school is a fantastic idea.
You may have one or two in your family. Yeah. We need 2 motions in,
Yeah, one for job description and the updated pay structure, and then one for Michael Clark. Did I upload my name and motions on?
motions, yeah, there's 2 separate paragraphs, so just a motion for paragraph. In this, just says motion, approve updated public works structure, and then the second one from Michael Clark.
Okay, for the pay structure plus job description. On the one.
Mr. Mayor, Jeff Leslie, 4th Ward, I move to approve the updated public works pay structure and pay scale and job description regarding the CDL training instructor position.
I second that.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Mr. Mayor, I move we promote Michael Clark from part-time firefighter to full-time CDL training instructor effective March 17th, 2022, starting at $18 an hour for 90-day probationary period, justification as explained by the city administrator.
Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Johanna, thank you for having that written out for us.
Okay. Going back to item D, we need to set a public hearing for our USDA application for the water infrastructure project. For,
Oh, was that one of the documents?
Yeah.
Does it have to, it can probably be at the next meeting, it's usually 10 days, I don't have it.
well, it's got down here on to have the public meeting for March 28th.
Okay, sure. Forgot about that one, I'm
Is that for public comment, Mr. Mayor?
Yes, well, it's a note for public.
Notice
meeting
for public
comment.
And you want to do that at the next schedule?
Yes.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we move to post the notice of public meeting
for USDA Department of Agriculture Rural Development for the water infrastructure project, March 28th, 2022, at 5 p.m. Public comment will be accepted at this time. The Girard City Hall, 120 North Ozark Street.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
All right.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Moving on to item F, consider pathways resolution.
Okay, so Karen, I have a question for you on this one, because right before the meeting, I got email from them, and they said they need to check the amount of grant that is available. Because they thought the maximum was 100, but they didn't know, and I wrote 100 in there. If we pass this tonight and they tell me it's not 100, we have to rescind that resolution with a new one.
Yes.
But we can do that.
You would have to, right, you would have to make that one null and void. You'd have to send it,
Is that just a motion to do that?
right, and you'd have to have a whole brand new resolution.
Okay, so we can either do that, or I can wait until I get an update from them on the amount of grant funding available, and do it at the next meeting. It doesn't matter to me.
I think it'd be cleaner. I'm sure.
It'd be cleaner to just.
Okay, so in that case, I would like to table that until they can get back with me on the amount of grant funding available.
And that's for, they send grant funding.
Pathways resolution is a grant for the design phase of the next sidewalk project.
Okay, so it's
And if
not,
they do have significantly less, we might want to reduce the size of that project, so that would have to change in the resolution piece, it probably would be better to see. Yeah, just wait, and hopefully I have an answer by next.
so just the design phase, yes, well.
Yeah, just the design phase, and then we can use that design to apply for a KDOT.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we table, item F, the pathways resolution until the next regular scheduled meeting on 28th March.
I'll second that.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay, moving on to item G. Acceptance of resignation from Raymond Community Home, Sandy Allison.
Mr. Mayor, before we introduce that motion, I would just like to extend thank you to Sandy. I don't know how long she's been doing that. I know she's been involved with the city for a substantial amount of time and has done good work in different capacities. I believe she used to be a council member, and her contribution shouldn't be overlooked at this time for resignation. So I'd like to extend her thanks.
Did she have a draft of resolution?
Yes.
But it wasn't,
No, she gave it to me and I opened it today. I can read it if you want. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. It's dated March 10th, 2022. Says Honorable Mayor and Girard City Council, I am asking to resign my position as Director of the Raymond Community Home Board. I have enjoyed being a vital part of our beautiful historical home. Sandra Hallison.
Mr. Mayor, I move we accept, with regret, accept Sandy Halsey's resignation.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. No further regular business. You will move on to governing body comments. Vanessa.
I just want to thank everybody for doing what they do. I know you guys put a lot of work in behind the scenes that we don't see. We just come with everything in writing and the final product. And I know you guys put a lot of feet on the ground all day, all night. I appreciate what you do for our city. And I have heard some great things lately, and people are watching, even though we don't always see that they're watching. But I have had a lot of people approach me, and more people are paying attention than you think. So I appreciate you and I appreciate everybody watching and listening and everybody involved in our town. That's all I have.
Lucas?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I have a couple of things for Cliff. I know I asked you this a lot. Is everything going well with the building or is everything in the building?
I haven't heard, I know they said, I talked to them about 5 days ago. I contacted them in North.
I know, personally, from the last few months, I've been told by a few people that last year was the supply issues. We heard about it, but it really wasn't as bad as this year. This is really the year
It's,
it's hitting.
it's all already been accounted for, we take the down payments and keep the price.
It just might take a little bit longer, but as far as everything
It
else,
should, everything, not the building said, it should be here in August.
and then for Steve on the KDOT, that's still moving his plan.
So the last time you guys asked me about that, I called and talked to Doug Polian, and we met and discussed everything. There was still an issue with the drainage, how they wanted to tie into that. So there were no plans yet, and when I contacted Doug and told him that we had the deal from when he was wanting us to sign, and he said, there's no plans yet, and I said, that's why I'm calling you. So there's still no plans that I know of, but we're forging ahead as far as our part of it. All the water materials are here now, so we have a project that's got to happen at the school that's got a priority, and then after that, we're moving to the water lines. So you'll start seeing some dirt getting excavated and some line work done.
And we can do all that before, so that's actually.
We can do some of it before, and then some of it will have to happen when they're actually here. They get everything down and they lay the new line, some of it will happen then.
Do we have any, I guess, anticipation for how long the road and everything's gonna be?
I have no idea. I don't, they haven't given me anything yet as far as plans or any of that for movement or anything. What I'm trying to do with the drainage, our box that's under there, for the most part, looks like it's got pretty good integrity. We took a camera through it as far as we can get through it. I'm proposing, alongside of Doug Polian, that we try to tie into that drain box. If we do that, we stay out of people's yards and easements, and it's a lot cleaner for us. So that's what I'm kind of pushing for on my end, and I think Doug is as well. But it's still up in the air. But as far as I know, I haven't heard any more, and I talked to him last week.
And typically, do they give us a little bit of time to make plans and get the police chief?
Typically, yes. I don't. This isn't.
It'll be a brief one.
Yeah, I was gonna say that you'll have some space, but I think it's gonna move faster than typical, just because it's an emergency fix, is what they're calling it. But they still will have a pre-con conference and all the terms will have to be met. We'll have contractors, just like a normal job. It'll probably just a little more expeditious. As you're talking about with that, they're gonna close the whole thing.
Yeah.
There's no way to do it.
I know I've had some feedback on that, just with concerns about trucks and where stuff's gonna go, so.
Well, the trucks are gonna be, well, as far as the trucks that pass through, those are gonna be shut off. But Kansas will shut them off, and they'll put troopers out, from what I heard. That's one of the discussions we had, is they'll put scales out to stop them. That won't be like it was before. And if they get here, somehow they take the back road and get here, they're not gonna have anywhere to go when they get here. So they're gonna be back in the semi for a long way. It won't take long for that to get out, and they'll stop.
Oh, yeah, that definitely.
Yeah, so the only thing would be, and we run into is the local stuff like co-op. But we've talked with them in the past too, and they said if we need to get off of it, we'll get off of it. We'll figure it out. So I'm pretty sure they'll put it.
Yeah, as
Well,
long
they'll
as,
have to, because I mean, we don't have any
Yeah,
choice.
and my thing is just as long as we're open and communicate with them.
Yeah.
So everyone's on the same page, no surprises.
I think once we get to the point where they say, okay, we've got some plans, we're gonna send down to you to look at that point, I'll reach out to Bryce at the co-op and, maybe we can put a bulletin out or something for farmers, I don't know if there'll be anything. Should be going on, but just in case, we can put something out publicly. Wouldn't hurt anyway, cause even for regular traffic in town, putting that notice out. You'd be surprised, people drive the same route every day for the last 10 years, and when you take that route away, it's like they can't figure out another way to go.
Yeah, they become lost.
Yeah.
I don't know, how's the golf course? Opening that up and doing
It's doing good. We're on the days, on the good weather days, we're having good success as far as revenue. The kitchen's putting food out. We're selling beverages again, just like we were before. Good feedback, lots of good feedback from people. And so we're getting now to the point. The 3rd of April will be when the league play starts. 1st of April is always our targeted opening date. So we're going to keep everything the way it is, except I'm going to have her shift. Our one individual that's out there for 40 hours, I'm going to have her shift in, coming in a little bit later so he can stay a little bit later through the daylight hours and catch that. Because a lot of times what we catch on that, on the beverage part of it, we'll catch guys come back through after they're done, and we'll sit around there and have a few drinks and talk and whatnot. So it's been good. I mean, on the winter days, she's been closing it early. She'll call me if she's not getting any business or anything. She'll call me. We close it just to cut the overhead.
Was 4 the one that we last year? Or 3? I can't remember what
The water
4 was.
system.
Well, all I know is a guy called me last week, he played there a lot, he said there was a large water.
That was on the back of, it was on the side of 6 Green and back of the 17 Hawks. And we haven't, yet, we haven't because of this temperature changing.
Yeah.
We haven't fired that system up yet. I did, after, I don't remember which one of you brought it up the last time, I did get an irrigation quote, and you'll want me to pursue grant money.
Yeah.
So I'm working on that. I actually have my eye on a grant already, and I'm going to see if there's a possibility of making that work. But I do have a quote now, so at least I know where we're at.
And honestly, the feedback I got from guys at golf, that was the only thing that came up, was just that they said they were going to take a pond.
Yeah.
And they were exaggerating, but it was still a hassle.
It wasn't much of an exaggeration. It's a lot of water that was getting away.
I don't know if that's something that, even if it's not the entire thing, if that's something we could work on just to stop it from
Just
being.
like we did last year. I mean, we keep pounding away at it, but it's a bad turn. And we tried everything. We braced it, 100 different ways. I mean, the only thing really we can do is as it happens, go back in. So the problem with it is when you're on auto watering system, it never happens at 8 o'clock in the morning when everybody's here. It happens because we water at night. It happens at 2 o'clock.
Is that something that Girard could help us, or is it something different?
Because we need the water. If you water during the day, you're going to get more phone calls. We've tried that, and so they don't. That's why we water at night. You get the water down while the grass, while everything's cool. Because if you water when it's hot, you scorch.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things involved with it. But a lot of it too is gameplay, and I don't know. People don't really like to be playing and get showered.
Yeah, and I'm not a golfer per se, and I'll go out there sometimes if the guys want to play a little bit, but my thing is I had to look to tell them, we have a widest pool of water, if it was something to do with the layout of the course, or just.
It is an old irrigation system, and it's not Rainbird. Rainbird is the control. The irrigation system is the irrigation system, and it is old, and it has seen its life, and it needs to be replaced, but it comes at a cost. And so to keep good favor with the public, and I think by keeping the rates low, I think we've seen more people coming out from the general public than what used to, and hopefully that's created some ownership so they understand why we have to spend this money. But even at the cost that they quoted me for that new irrigation, it's still cheaper than fixing 9 greens because they burn it because they can't get water.
So basically what it is the irrigation is doing its job with watering, but it's not precise, but because of
It's blowing. It's just like lines in town.
okay,
We blow.
and it just causes the water.
What if we put something out for donations out at the golf course for things like that? Put a box out, say things that we need fixed. Here's one of the things for the irrigation. This is what we want to do, and those people that are severely interested in that aspect can donate to it. I mean,
I think it's probably not a bad idea, but I don't think you'll see much, I don't think you'll see much revenue, because people enter into that or I would at the golf course. Other than this one, I don't have vested interest in. If I walked on the Four Oaks and they say, hey, donate to my fund that fits this golf course, I'd say, yeah, I did back the clubhouse when I paid my dues or paid my green fees. So, I don't know how it's not you can do it. I just don't know how receptive people will be for it.
And that was, what Vanessa said, Bill, was, I did have this question, I didn't bring it up because it was on my list, but someone approached me and they're a golfer, they've golfed there for a long time. And they asked, why can't the city do their own tournament? Like you have a hospital and the casino, and why can't the city do their own tournament and then raise money for the
I have
course?
zero problem with that idea. I don't know on the legal side of things what that looks like. I don't have a problem with the city sponsoring a tournament and doing something like that. I just don't know from the legal aspect of it. I don't know what cities can or can't do with that. So I'm not opposed to it. I'm just saying if you want to investigate it, we can and then see what the legal ramifications are.
Well, I told him to go to the golf committee at the time and said, if you go to the golf committee, bring that up, because I don't know why we couldn't. I just don't know what in the past we've done and if it would even be possible, like what you said, with any legalities from raising money from a golf tournament for your golf.
I just don't know.
But that's the only thing, because there's just a few things, they're not very many, but the ones that are like that, they're big enough, they brought them up, and, that's what you brought up, and my girl said, that was asking last year, right, to save your own tournament and keep a cut and pick something, I said, I don't know, so.
I think it's a catch-22 because I think you got some people that are going to think that's a great idea, and then you got some people that are going to think, it's like Bill said. I mean, I think you're going to have some people that are going to say, we're paying our dues, use that, and which we do. We do use that, and it's hard for people to understand that a golf course is not a profit generator.
But a tournament, though, is that different, Steve, though, because
Do you have to amend your budget? That'd be the question I have in my mind. If you tried to do another fundraiser, do we have to amend your budget? So we'd want to consider, and I gotta tell you, I think the revenue we generate would be fairly de minimis. Would be my initial reaction. I think Bill's probably correct. I pay my taxes here in Girard and Crawford County. It's an amenity for Girard. Why should I kick in more money? I would think would be the general reaction of our public as opposed to trying to do fundraisers. I think it's, on the order of a cakewalk or a barbecue or something to try to raise money. I don't know if you're gonna raise that much money. And
I'm gonna make a little bit from the entertainment.
I think the people that use the golf course would be more apt to do it, like Aaron, your group of people, they could make teams and do that, but they're specifically doing it because they use the facility and they understand that, and it's just another chance for them to go out and do what they like doing, which is the golfing. But if it could, raise a couple $1,000, I think we'd be better off, because if we had that money in the kitty, maybe we could match it with grants and just that kind of stuff.
Well, there is that. I mean, whether it's enough to fund the irrigation system or not, if it's enough to fund the match, and there is going to be match no matter what grant you get. Grants are never free.
Right.
They come from match. Now, I'm going to approach the golf committee. We haven't had a meeting yet, but I'm planning on approaching the golf committee about our rates this year, because we have golf carts that are getting old too. And so that'll be the next thing. If you're not already hearing about it from constituents, you will be. And I've already got pricing on that as well, and I'm ready to pull the trigger on it. But we need the revenue to make it work. So I've put a schedule together, a proposal together for the committee when we meet. I talked to one other committee member separately, and he was very receptive to that idea of still keeping the price down. I want to keep the price low enough that the general public feels like they can go out there and play. Because that's the biggest thing that you run. That's the stigma attached to golf courses, is that it's just for people who have lots of money. And it's not. It's a sport that's good for wellness. And that's what we're going to try to push.
Sure. And lastly, I just have one for Karen, the frisbee golf. We talked a little bit about it last time, but is it possible, or could we do a subcommittee of the golf committee that's more just feedback or just individuals that want to provide input.
A subcommittee, again, that would have, you'd have to do your bylaws and so on and so forth. They'd have to pass by you, get the council, and be suggested by the mayor. It'd have to be a mayor appointed, mayoral appointed. So any board member has to be appointed by the mayor.
So
If it's gonna be an official board of the city.
in order to do that, it'd be something they would have to bring toward, or to the committee.
Couldn't the golf committee, if they wanted to do a subcommittee of themselves, they could do it.
Sure.
But if you do a new board, then that's when you get into governmental.
Appointing process, that's correct.
I guess for the ones that have asked me about it, I need to have them petition the golf committee, just ask them to.
Can you not have interested citizens to come and give their help or suggestions or opinions without being quote unquote a board?
You can, the only benefit that I, oh, is that whether that's rhetorical or,
It come for
I mean,
anybody.
you've already got a golf committee.
He's just saying that people that are on the golf committee don't know about the frisbee golf. So he wanted someone to kind of head up that end on the board in order to maintain greens, or if there's any problems, trees falling, that they could contact the city, that would be the person to go to. So if we could, I don't know how many people are on the golf committee that are in charge of the golf committee, what, 6, 7?
Should be 7, I think.
So if we could just add a figurehead or 2 to that and extend that board to cover this extra area, then I think that would be a good idea. I mean, there could be weird things happening out there. People drive their cars through the course. You know what I mean? Just stuff that can't be necessarily taken care of by golf because the golf people weren't going to use the facility.
No, you,
Or they might, I mean, some of the golf, I mean, Bill might go out there and start
Throwing a frisbee.
frisbee golfing, we don't know, but
I think.
I think possibility of that instance of you playing frisbee golf or probably Slim and None, and Slim just left town. So, but that being said, you know, it's gaining popularity. About every city you see got 1 or 2 of them set up. At bigger cities, you know, even more. And people like to play it. So you have to be mobile to play that though. And I don't think they play it from a cart. So,
They actually do have handicaps.
yeah.
well, and my,
You're handicapped now, though.
and my thing too, Bill, was I feel like you guys, the golf committee is made up of passionate golfers that want to see the course succeed, and that would be the same for the frisbee golf. It'd be people that were passionate about going out there and they would have some way to communicate to the city.
I think probably so.
But I can do that. I'll tell them to petition you guys, or just because that way, if they're serious, they'll move forward with it, and you can go from there and see what happens.
If they're interested, just have them call the city hall and we can take names and numbers and bring that to the council meeting and say we have 5 people that are interested, or we go from there.
So I have Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Bill?
I have no comment, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you to all city employees, everyone, Karen, Johanna, Steve, Clifford, appreciate you all very much. Do a lot of work. Echo Councilman Westervelt's opinion. I was at dinner last week. There's an entity at a nearby table complaining about snow removal, and one of our local insurance agents said them right. Said, well, you should go around to some of the other towns because our town does a great job. And so it just seems like there's a cohort of people out there, the old silent majority, that appreciates what you guys do. And it's nice to hear it once in a while. And so I think you guys should know that there are, like Vanessa said, there's folks out there that appreciate your effort and realize that, you know, you do way better than expected at a lot of places. So thank you. That's it, Mr. Mayor. Oh, wait, one other thing, sorry. On the North Summit K7 project, I think that, you know, the delays, which that happens with all construction projects and stuff. I think we should take an opportunity to express once again, our gratitude to Crawford County for those temporary repairs, because, man, if they hadn't come in and helped us out with that, and this thing dragging on probably a year longer than our initial best case thought scenario, oh my goodness, that would have been a mess. So thank you, Crawford County, for your assistance in this and other projects. That's it, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, I have nothing.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we adjourn.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. We are adjourned.
I bet you had some.
How many are you gonna stay?
Why are you guys acting weird today?
It's a full moon Friday.
It's your head.
That's it.
Who's acting weird?
Oh, every one of them.
I'll let her rip.
Did it die?
What's that?
No, so don't.